if you're in the area and want to stop by, feel free. It is a federal building, so you will have to go through security and everything, or you can send me an email and we can set up a virtual meeting. So I'm going to share my screen and then you let me know if you could see it. Once it gets going, of course, it's going to give me a hard time. All right, let me know if you can see it. All right, good. All right, and I'm going to come off video because it's on the other screen, and that way I'm not looking all over the place, but I'll come off video in between and we can answer questions. So we'll make sure we get everything answered for you. All right, today we're going to be covering how to create a marketing plan. And let's see if I can get it to work. There we go. So I wanted to cover first the differences between a marketing strategy and a marketing plan. So the strategy is your long-term marketing plan, right? So this usually spans over more than a year. It can be a couple of years. While the plan is a lot shorter. Typically, a marketing plan is, it can be a 90-day plan or a 6-month plan or a year or less. And so the marketing strategy will define your long-term vision and your key metrics for success. And then the plan will have those action steps to help you reach the goals in your marketing strategy. So the plan is this roadmap that's going to help you organize, execute, and track. And you'll see that as a theme throughout this presentation about how to connect your day-to-day business behaviors to meet those business goals. So we're going to tie them to campaigns, to different marketing channels and deliverables. So that way you're being more intentional with how you spend your time on your marketing activities in your business. So the big distinction is that the strategy is the overall framework on how you're going to achieve these long-term goals, while the plan is going to outline and those step-by-step things you need to be doing day in and day out, and it's going to be tied to your specific goals. You're going to have timelines, budgets, your marketing channels, and your KPIs. Now, this is different from your business plan. Now, within your business plan, you will have some marketing components, but your business plan covers the entirety of your company, from your mission, your hiring roadmap, financials, all of that. While your marketing plan, oh, I have this duplicated. Sorry, I'll update that. While your marketing plan is more those day-to-day activities that are going to help you reach those shorter-term goals. So there is a distinction between your marketing plan and your business plan. And studies have shown that businesses with a marketing plan are 6.7 times more likely to have success than those without a plan. And I'm sure you can all agree that sometimes marketing can be overwhelming, especially like if your business is not marketing, the marketing aspect of it can feel like it's a whole other job, right? So having this plan in place will help you focus your efforts and understand where you should be spending your time to market your business. So the first thing you need to do is set some goals. I always like to say, we hear this all the time, you want to have SMART goals. They want to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. That way you're not saying things like, I want my business to make $15 million this year, right? So I want you to think a little bit deeper, like I want my year over year growth to be 10%. I want to increase my reach to this percent. So you want to think about that. And then you want to have them where they can be measurable, right? You don't want to say like, I just want to grow, I want to grow my business versus I want to double the size of my clientele in the next 12 months. So some examples are you want to increase your revenue by a percentage, you want to add new customers, another one that I think businesses sometimes overlook is growing your average order value. That's one of the, I wouldn't say the easiest ways, but that's one of the ways if you already have a client base that comes to you pretty regularly, one of the strategies could be to increase that average order value. Sometimes just increasing your order value by a certain percentage can greatly impact your bottom line. It could also be to have more repeat purchases if you want to expand into a new service or marketing area. So you want to have like one big goal and some supporting things to go along with it. This will also depend on where you are in your business, right? Like if you're in the startup phase versus the growth phase, right? You're going to have different goals and we're going to define them a little differently. So these goals are the list of aspirations for the basis of your content strategy. So that way you want to make sure if you're saying like, I want to grow my customer reach by 10%, you have to think about where your customer is spending time. So you can think about where you're going to concentrate your efforts to reach these people. So any questions so far? All right, great. So, what are you really selling? So, you want to think about every product or service you're offering. You want to think about your core services. You want to think about your add ons, your packages, if you have one time services, subscriptions, memberships, seasonal promotions. And I want you to get this all on paper so you can figure out if you're trying to grow your business and you're trying to expand on an area, where do these products or services fit into that so you can focus on your messaging and how you're going to be talking to people and who you're going to be talking to. One of these, there's a one-time services. Are there some products in your offer suite that a customer can purchase one time, or do you have stuff that people can purchase multiple times, right? Are you in e-commerce versus are you in experience? So I want you to think about everything you're offering, get it laid out, and then we can tie these into your goals. I want you to also evaluate, the 80-20 Pareto principle applies to most things. And I would say start to evaluate which of your offers or products make you the most money, what has the most margins, what are you selling repeatedly, what's easy to sell, or what in your offer suite is like a barrier to sell. Like, is there confusion around your product? Do you not really sell it? I want you to start to evaluate what you're offering so we can figure out where you need to be spending your efforts. And it's not to say that you should only be focusing on things that bring in that 80% of your income. There may be an opportunity if you're saying, like, hey, I have this really cool product or service that's rarely selling. That's where I'd like to focus my efforts this year. That's a totally valid goal. It's not that you want to ignore the things that are not doing well. This is your opportunity to evaluate so you can decide where you want to spend your time. Think about if you have an offer ladder, is there an opportunity to upsell and cross sell, right? Do you have something that gets people in the door? Do you have something that is more premium? Do you have something to get people to come back? I want you to think about all the different things that you can offer and how you can offer them, and kind of think about ways you can market them throughout the year. So, is this a single product? Is this a service? Is this a bundle? Is this an intro? So, now that you know what you're offering and what your goals are, you want to start to think about your audience and defining this audience. So you want to think about your buyer persona, and typically a business will have between like 2 and 5 buyer personas. Um, when you're thinking about who your ideal client is, I know a lot of us think like your ideal client is everyone, right? So I'll just put it into perspective, right? Everybody uses toilet paper, but not everyone is buying the toilet paper in the house, right? Like my kids use toilet paper, but they're not going to the store, right? So I want you to think about the differences between like who's using your product and who's actually purchasing your product and who your customer that you need to sell to is. What triggers them to buy? What problem are you solving? What do they care about most, right? Is your product, you deliver it the fastest, right? Or are you price based? Is it trust? Is it quality? Is it convenience? These are levers that matter to different people, right? Like some people, they don't care about the quality about a product as much as they care about a price, right? They're very price driven. And then you're going to have some clients that they don't care what it costs them. They want the quality, they want the experience, they want the speed, they want the convenience. So think about who your ideal client is and think about their journey, right? I want to break it into stages. So your ideal customer will come in these multiple stages, right? You think about it, sometimes you hear it called a funnel, right? So you want to think that very top of the funnel is awareness. This is how they discover you, right? Do they not know about you but need to learn about you, right? You're getting it on their radar. That consideration is how they compare you to other brands in your category. What makes them buy? The retention, right? What makes them come back to repeat purchase? And then the last one is evangelist. Like, are they talking about your product or service in a positive way to get you some referrals in? So you want to think about where your customer is on their journey, right? You might say, like, I have a great purchase rate, my conversion rate is high, but I really struggle with retention. My goal is this year to get repeat customers, right? That's a total valid goal. You might say, like, I get customers coming back, but they're not referring me. Like, what can I do to wow them to get them to be a voice for me, right? Like, it's like 7 or 8 times more expensive to get a new customer than it is to acquire or to get them to refer them to you, right? So it's better to have someone doing that work for you. Have you ever been like to a restaurant or a place or anywhere that you can't stop talking about because the service was so great and like you feel like everybody should experience that, right? Have you ever used a product that you can't stop raving about and you just start talking to everybody about, right? So you want to think about that. and then write what they need at each stage, right? So each stage of this funnel, people are going to require different things. In the awareness stage, is going to be a lot more local SEO, social content, events, and ads. But consideration, when people are really considering if they're going to buy from you, they're going to want to hear more information. They want to see testimonials, case studies, pricing clarity, frequently asked questions. Versus when they're ready to make a purchase. Do you have an easy booking or checkout process? Do you have a good follow-up? Do you have all of that in place? When it's time to get people to come back, do you have a good email marketing system in place to get people to come back? This is really important, especially for seasonal businesses, right? When somebody, Rhode Island gets a lot of tourism. So if you have a brick and mortar in a location that gets a lot of foot traffic, how do you get people to come back to you year after year, right? Like I know when I travel with my kids, there's like, depending on where we are, they'll have a memory of a store and they'll want to go back and have that, right? And having the store send emails and reminding me about what's going on keeps it on my radar. Maybe I'll do some e-commerce shopping. So you want to think about that retention, loyalty, and how to reactivate people to come back to you. And then for that evangelist stage, like, can you offer referral codes? You'll see a lot of companies doing things like refer us with this link, and then they'll get $10 off your order, and then you'll get $10 off your next order. So think about all these different places that your ideal customer can be on their buying journey, and think about ways that you need to target them at each stage. So let's talk about marketing channels, but we're going to take a pause for how's the chat looking?
Good. Someone was just asking about slides, but those will
Yep.
be given
Yep.
to
You'll
you.
get the slides. All right. So go where they are. Understanding your target market is really going to help you understand the different marketing channels you're going to need to use and to get content that they can relate to. So for example, like if you were trying to market to my dad, you're not going to be on Snapchat or TikTok, right? If you're trying to market to, like me, you're not going to do it on Snapchat either, but you're not going to, you're not going to spend as much time as like maybe a blog, because I'm not going out and reading blogs, right? So understanding how your customer behaves and where they're spending time online and how they process information, right? Like the type of buyer they are. If the type of buyer is by speed and convenience, then you want to make sure the language of your marketing is built into that, right? Like callbacks within 2 hours, right? Instant callback. If your buyer is someone who's really focused on price, you want to make sure that when you're reaching them, you're talking about the price value. If you're somebody that's like really, if your customer is really someone that's focused on content and quality, then you want to go and be in spaces that they can see that, right? So if you have a design product, you're probably going to want to spend more time on like Pinterest and visual mediums, Instagram, versus other mediums where like they're only looking for price or convenience. So understanding where your ideal customer is hanging out in each of those journeys, right? Where they're hanging out for a buyer decision might be different than where they're hanging out when they're thinking about referring you. Where will they show up, right? So when we talked about that awareness phase, most people are going to find you either from SEO, from Google, right? Making sure your pages are optimized, those partnerships, events. But if you're looking for someone that's in that consideration phase, right? Maybe you're on TikTok, maybe you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, depending on your demographic, right? Some of that longer form content explaining like those FAQs and different ways to answer questions before they have them. So ideally, when they're in this consideration phase, you want to be answering questions before they know they have them, because while they may not be able to verbalize them subconsciously, they have these roadblocks in their brain. So you want to make sure you're answering those questions before they verbalize them, right? And then your follow-up channels, right? Like how can you convert and retain? Is that through email? Is text message marketing is really big right now. Are these retargeting ads? Is it scheduling calls? Is it in the DMs? And then you want to break it down. The type of content you need to offer at each of these is different, right? So the type of content you need for a blog is going to be very different than the type of content you need through email. Even though they're both written mediums, how you word them and how you structure them is going to be very different. So understanding the different content types, and this is a heavy lift, right? Especially as a small business owner, lots of small businesses don't have their own in-house marketing teams. So figuring out the types of content you need, so then that way you can be more mindful about where you're spending your time. So if you know you need to spend more time on your email marketing, you don't have to worry about doing things like dancing on TikTok, because you know that's not where your ideal client is getting their information and making their buying decisions. And then I want to talk about a little bit about clarifying the scope. This does a couple of things, and it can sound a little bit counterintuitive. Um, because, when you're thinking about what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing, you want to think about what are the stakeholders or who are the stakeholders? Especially you're going to have, people coming to you and being like, oh, this is really hot right now. We should pivot and do this. And, the simple response is like, that's just not in the scope at this point, right? Like at this point, we're testing this strategy, or at this point, we're working on building our SEO. We're spending our time on SEO. So that way you're not tempted to try what's new and flashy, right? Like it's easy to get caught off and like want to learn something like cool and glittery versus saying like, hey, the next 90 days, we're focusing on doing all of our meta tags on our website, right? Getting more visible on Google, right? Increasing our ranking. Having this scope allows you to say no to other people or to yourself when all of these requests, because they will come up, right? It'll be like, oh, we should be doing like 8 TikTok videos, but no, that's not in your plan. You're going to stick to it. And, you have the way to say no because it's just not defined in your scope. Understanding your numbers. So I always say, you can't grow what you're not measuring. So understanding like how much you should be investing. This is a question I always get asked. How much of your budget should be put to marketing, right? Like if you're a very lean company, on average, 3 to 5% is what most small businesses are investing in their marketing. And when I say their marketing, it covers everything. This is not only their ads, right? This is the cost it takes to like get your different platforms to be able to do this, right? Like your Canva, your editing tools, your this, your that. If you're in the growth phase and you're really pushing, that 6 to 10% tends to be more where most businesses will fall in. And if you're on that scaling and you want to be more aggressive, 10 to 15% of your budget is allocated. And this allows you to have a team, right? To be able to support these ventures. So we're small businesses, right? You're trying to think like, where can I invest my time? Where small businesses get their fastest ROI is having a great website or landing page experience, right? Doing that website app optimization, that customer optimization, right? Their customer experience, making sure your Google business profile and all you're getting reviews, make sure everything's up to date, and then email marketing or text marketing are the three biggest ones that have the fastest ROI, right? Like you could spend some time optimizing your webpage, doing your meta tags, updating your SEO descriptions. Like you can take your time doing that and you'll have a big impact right away. Let's see. So whether you're working with a small budget, a tiny budget, micro, or big budget, allowing you to budget, right? Because you're probably going to need some tools or software, right? I don't think you should be paying for an analytics platform. Google Analytics is free, but you're going to probably pay for like your email platform. You're going to pay for a design tool like Canva. You're going to pay for maybe some editing. So thinking about understanding what your budget is and where you need to be spending that money can help you narrow your scope, right? So if you're a very lean company and you only have, say, $1,000 a quarter to invest, you understand where you need to break that down, right? What tools you're going to need and how you're going to spend that money. And be honest, right? I would say when you're estimating how much it's going to cost you, like be honest with your budget. Like if you really can't swing it, then you can't swing it. But you also have to understand some things that you would have to pay for convenience. Say, for example, like paying for a premium Canva membership where you're able to unlock additional design tools versus getting the free version and having to learn some additional hacks. So you're either going to spend it in time or in money. So just be aware that the smaller your budget is, it's very likely you're going to be spending more time doing some of that work yourself, right? That on page optimization, getting all of those things updated versus paying someone. So understanding where you are and what you're able to invest is very important. And then you want to understand your numbers, right? So if you're thinking about like you want to increase your sales, or you need to understand like what your conversion rate is, how much your average sale is. You want to understand all of these things and how many leads you're going to need so you can back into those numbers. So if you're saying like you want to grow your business by 10%, your revenue 10% in a year, and say that 10% is $50,000, and you know your average sale is $500, you know you need to have 100 additional customers, right? And what does that mean? If you have a 20% conversion rate, that means you need an additional 500 leads per month to hit those numbers. So understanding where you are right now so you can understand how to get to where you want to be. And then as you're working on improving, right? Like, so say right now your close rate, like your conversion rate is 8%, but you want to get to 10%, and that's one of your goals for the quarter, right? You want to think about how those in fact impact your bottom line. Like, do you need 380 leads per month versus 500, right? Those little percentages make a difference. So understanding these basic metrics can help you back into what you need to realistically hit your goal. You want to map out your content. Are you going to do this like seasonal? Are you going to have promotional periods? Are you launching a new product? Do you have a new product or sales? Are you going to implement some evergreen campaigns? Evergreens are things that lead generate and nurture your existing list. Are you going to have weekly content themes? Are you going to do more holiday stuff, right? Understanding what you want to do can help you understand what you need to be focusing your time on, because consistency beats complexity. I don't need you creating these really complex campaigns. I need you to consistently create campaigns and execute on them. So this plan will give you direction and purpose. So I want you to think about the minimum effective dose. It can be very overwhelming to think about all the things you need to do to market your business. But I want you to think about your baseline, like your non-negotiable. No matter how crazy life gets, you commit to doing what per week or what per quarter, right? Think about that number and really stick to it. So that way, no matter what happens, you're like, I don't need to produce 5 pieces of content per week, but I know each week I need at least one solid piece of content. Taking that off your shoulders and being realistic so you're able to be consistent makes more sense in these complex strategies you're not able to execute. So just some ideas on different strategies, right? So if you're going to focus on SEO, you might want to do some keyword research. You might want to think about your optimized content. You want to think about your funnel. If you're focusing on social media, you want to think about the number of posts. You want to do different engaging pieces of content. If you're thinking about content marketing, you want to think about blogs and videos, infographics, how-to guides. If you're focusing on email marketing, do you have an automated onboarding sequence? When somebody joins your list, do you have like a welcome sequence automated? If not, that's something you should probably work on. Do you want to send promotional emails? Do you want to have newsletters? Like, thinking about these in terms of what your strategy is, and then what tactics, what things need to be done on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis in order to help you reach those goals. So I like to break them down into quarterly themes, right? So you have your first quarter, like when you're thinking about your end of year goal, what do you need to do each quarter to back into that, right? So say your first quarter is, you want to fix your website, you want to get that going. And then quarter two is you're focusing on partnerships and growth. And then quarter three, optimization. And then number four, maybe you want to focus entirely on holiday. So the final stage of this is executing, right? So thinking about your timelines and what you need to be doing to accomplish these. And you do want to have some flexibility in there because, things change in your life, things change in your business, things change in the market. So I want you to, create a plan that you can stick to, but give yourself a little bit of flexibility or a little bit of leeway. So then that way you're able to, you're not stressing yourself out. Sometimes things that are too rigid stress people out. So you want to think about the task to support your plan. What do you need to be doing day in and day out, right? To be able to get this going. And I like to break it down. Well, that's a repeat. Weekly. I like to break it down weekly, right? Like, so what are the things you need to be doing on a weekly basis, right? Is that a sales call number you need to hit per week? Do you need to be creating certain number of pieces of content per week? Do you need to be networking and meeting other people, right? You need to be spending time out there letting people know about your business? Or do you need to be focusing on optimizing a piece of your funnel or creating a funnel, right? Like understanding what you need to be doing in day out, because sometimes busy work, like, right, you can feel really busy doing this work, but you're not actually doing the work that needs to be done to move the needle to help you reach your goals. So you want to track. Don't track 25 things, right? Like if you start tracking a million things, it can be so overwhelming. I want you to track on what's moving the needle based on what your goals are, what's making you the money, right? Is it leads per week? Is it conversion rate, right? Is it that average order value? Think about the key performance indicators that make sense tied to your goal, right? So like if your goal is to increase your conversion rate, then some of the things you want to be tracking is obviously your conversion rate, where you want to be tracking like traffic to your website, how many people are completing certain steps of your funnel. So I want you to think about all the different KPIs tied to your specific business goals. And I want you to track them across channels, right? Sometimes you'll see these metrics that come in that you're not necessarily tracking, right? Like say you're tracking your conversion rate, but you'll notice that your average order value is going up, right? Like it's not a direct result, or maybe it is of anything you're doing, but you'll get excited about these other KPIs, but those are not the ones that are measuring the success of your goal, right? So even though it's really great that you're seeing these other metrics grow, you want to make sure that you're tying the success or measuring the success of your campaigns based on the KPIs, those performance indicators that are tied to your goal. So you want to adjust. I want you to always be reflecting, like what's working, what's not. What do you want to stop? What do you want to continue? What do you want to change? If you're noticing something isn't working, I want you to do a deep dive, right? Like, is there maybe a headline on your page that needs to be changed? Is it maybe your anchor image that needs to change, right? So before you abandon and just say, hey, this isn't working, I want you to like really get deep into the root underlying cause of why something isn't working. Because if it's not working, I don't want you to continue it, but I also want you to evaluate why it's not working, because sometimes it's a small tweak or a small change that can really make your campaign go from not working to successful. So to wrap it up, so this is a roadmap, and I want you to think about your messaging, your offer, your audience, and then decide where you need to be spending your time. Then you can put it into action. Because if you're not doing these first things, really you're just going to be spending your time, like I said earlier, being busy and doing things without having an actual goal or a key KPI or key performance indicator tied to them. So here in this resource slide, these will all be clickable. These have templates on how to create this, right? So if you like to work off a document, these will have some documents for you to download as templates. And then if you need some help one-on-one getting these done, you could reach out to one of our resource partners and we can help you with this. The only one that is exclusionary is the Veteran Business Outreach Center. If you are not military, a veteran, or a spouse, then you are not able to use the VBOC, but you are able to use the other three resources. If you'd like to connect directly with the SBDC, who is co-hosting this event with us, Elena can get you the information on that, or you can click on this link. So let's come off and then have a conversation.
Thank you.